was a lot of chaos, but a great energy. It was a small house. You know, I shared a room with two of my sisters, and my brothers each had kind of little small rooms, and there was a lot of activity, there was a lot of sports happening. We were doing lots of art and lots of music. See, we didn't have a television for many, many years, and so when you don't have a television, there's many things that you'll get into, and that's what we did.
How do you think that affected you, just not having the television?
You would, we just, you know, dive into the records, dive into the radio. That was our, you know, connection to the outer world. I mean, Show 'em FM in the mornings getting up, and then any kind of music that we could listen to in this small town that we grew up in. So we got radio from Montreal and radio from some of the northern New York State. Right. So that's what, that was
especially
our connection.
At night, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And that, and playing music, but that was our connection to the outer world, because we were pretty much, you know, the town was 1,200 people, I think, at that time, maybe even less. And we were outside of town on a, you know, it was about 80 acres.
Oh,
so yeah, and
that's not an acreage. That's
yeah.
That's a farm.
Well, yeah, and we lived a lifestyle that was pretty a rugged lifestyle. Like we had heated the house by a wood stove in the middle of the kitchen, and we had electricity and water, but it was just a different type of lifestyle.
Your father, I mean, not only was he a historian, but he was a folk singer. He was a phenomenal photographer. He loved nature. Can you tell me a story about your dad?
He was a go-getter. He was an adventurer. You know, Sundays was like going out into the woods day as a family kind of thing. But I think the best story to describe him is we weren't allowed to have coloring books because he felt like it stunted your creative process. And if we did get Legos, he would throw away the instructions. And so we would have to figure it out ourselves. So that's what kind of father he was in an artistic sense. And at the time, it was infuriating as a kid. You know, we didn't understand, like, what is he doing? And now as I'm older, I totally understand what he was trying to do. He didn't believe in commercialism. So, you know, I could have asked for a Barbie every Christmas, every year, and I never got one. He stood by what he believed in, and he wouldn't, you know, bend to the pressures of the people around him, you know, especially other parents. And like I said, at the time it was maddening, but now I'm so thankful that he did that for us.
There's the story where he packed everybody into the vehicle and then drove out to BC to visit where he grew up.
Yeah, so he was raised in Nelson, and he was a folk singer in the 60s, and he traveled across Canada singing folk songs and met my mother in Montreal. And then...
she was in a dance troupe?
She was in a dance troupe called the Foufoulée, and he would get up in between when the dancers, they were doing dances from around the world, so they had to change costume, and he would get up and sing cowboy songs to entertain the audience while the dancers were changing. And that's how we met my mom, and you know, they didn't really speak each other's language, but they did fall in love and ended up staying in Montreal. So in the summers, he would pack us all in this van, and you know, we probably were supposed to be wearing seat belts on some of those trips because the law got put into place, but we were just in this kind of bed platform in the back, and we would drive across Canada almost every year. And then when gas got too high of a price, so we had to stop.
Wow,
yeah.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Well, what about your mom? Tell us a little story about your mom that tells us about her personality.
She is a strong, like, to raise 5 of us, we were energetic, and we were involved in all kinds of different things. And I don't mean like a hockey mom or a soccer mom, just we were just really loud. And we were...
you were kids.
Yeah, and we were, but also really jovial and really an excited family to be doing certain things. And she was able to put us in place a lot. And she's very short, actually. She's quite like the smallest in our family. And but I think about her, she was a dancer, and then she raised us. But she has a strength that she taught us, and I guess the best example for that is she taught or was a leader in Girl Guides and devoted her time to that for years. And so, she taught me how to light a fire with one match. And even as my leader, she wasn't giving me a break. Like, she pushed us to do things and to figure it out. And also to not care what people thought. She was really, really strong about, don't wait for anybody, to do something. If you do that, you're going to be waiting around for your whole life. So if you want to go do something, just go do it. She definitely, my dad might have shown us what his idea of art was, but she verbalized a lot of that.
So insofar as the music that was going on in your house, apparently everything.
Because I was the youngest of 5, and so my siblings were 6 to 10 years older. So as a kid, I would sit and listen to records for hours, and it would be, one of my mom's Elvis records, one of the Beatles albums, one of my dad's folks, some Burl Ives, and then, Iron Maiden, and then Quiet Riot, and it just switched it up.
You got it all going on.
Oh, I was lucky, because
So
my
you were
siblings had all
exposed.
this cool music.
So you were exposed to everything.
Yeah. And a kid, if you are exposed, you'll pick out what you like. I mean,
Of course, yeah.
and Run to the Hills is a pretty cool.
And then you play it over and over.
Yeah.
And over
Oh,
and over.
yeah. There's some great songs out of those. Even the Rolling Stones. I really like them at an oddly young age.
You started playing the guitar when you were what, 11?
Yeah, I was like 10 or 11.
10 or 11? Yeah.
My dad had, pushed the other kids to play, like really encouraged them, and he tried a new technique with me, which was he didn't talk about it at all.
So
And,
did he taught you?
No, he didn't talk about playing guitar. He didn't try to get me to play guitar. He ignored the music part, and I dove into it on my own.
Oh,
Yeah. So there was a program at school where they were teaching kids how to play guitar, and I signed up right away. And I'd always, since I was like, I remember a time I was 9 years old, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. I was determined. And then when I was 10 or 11, there was some program in school.
And then you started doing live gigs even.
Well, and then there was a local talent show, and I got up there, and I think I started off with the Rolling Stones song, "It Is the Evening of the Day." What's that song?
Well, that's a nice.
Yeah, I started off with that one, and then did some
As Tears Go
Edelweiss,
By.
as Tears Go By.
Yeah.
And then I sang some Lead Belly. I was singing that stuff at a young age.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know
Belly,
how
I
good
got
it was, but it was fun.
At a point, you moved to Calgary?
Yeah, I'd gone to school in Montreal for a couple years and studied
music.
and then I went down to West Virginia and I studied music
The Appalachians.
in Appalachia, the Appalachian Mountains, at a smaller liberal arts school called Davis and Elkins. And they had a program, this folk program called Augusta, and it encompasses, years of folklore history, and they archive it. And so that was one of the reasons I picked that school. And but we
so
didn't have
not only did you have that kind of a, you were also exposed to the history of the region.
Yeah, and I was curious about that at that time. I was singing that stuff. I knew who Doc Watson was. I knew all of these artists that came from that area. And so it was, in choosing the school, I wanted something as far away from Canada as possible for an experience. And then this school with Augusta and all this history, it was a no-brainer for me to go down there.
What created the move to Calgary?
My brother lived here, and so I came to visit, and then I just never left.
So that was
Yeah,
in 2000.
That was in 2000, and there was a great country's acceptable here, so folk and roots music is also acceptable.
Right.
And that at the time wasn't like that in every city, and so it was really easy to find open mics every night of the week. There was opportunity, and people playing the same things as I was playing and understanding, how great we think folk music is or roots music is, and so it kept me here for all those years. Even when times I wanted to go, I was, I just always was drawn back. And then, of course, I got to playing in groups, and then once you're in a band, it's hard to leave because you want to keep playing.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
3 or 4 different groups that you
Yeah.
were playing with?
Yeah.
Magnolia Buckskin?
Yeah, that's a girl group I played with. Yeah.
What kind of things were you guys doing there?
Oh, we were doing, folky, bluegrass, kind of a mix of everything. We were all different songwriters, so we each brought something different to the table.
You've appeared on other people's records like Art Bergman.
Yeah.
You've done a few other things. You've worked with Tom Phillips.
One of my favorite things to do is sing harmony. And so, you know, being able to sing on someone's recording is an honor. You know, I love to do that, and it's fun. And you try to give them what they would like to hear on the song while being original. And so, yeah, I sang on Leroy Stagger's last album, Strange Paths, and with John Mort Hannum, and on Art Bergman's album, I got to do some backup vocals for that. I just love that. It's so much fun.
Your first album is When Guinevere Went Under. Now, is that referring to her being married to King Arthur and then falling for Lancelot?
It's a good question, and it's a little bit of a long story. When somebody puts out their first album, they usually self-title it. So it would be Emily Triggs' self-titled album. And I didn't really want to do that. And when I was born, I was the last one of 5 born. And my parents went into Montreal, and my mother had me, and then they were to leave the hospital, and they didn't have a name. At that time, you could leave the hospital and not name your kid. And so they took me home, and they didn't name me. They called me all kinds of things. They called me Le Bébé, they called me Cocotte, they called me Little No Name. And this went on for months. And so the government sent a letter and said, you have to name your child. And my parents said, yeah, we'll do that. And they didn't. And this is more months go by, and the government said, you have to name your child or we'll fine you. My parents said, okay, we don't have money for that. So they named me Guinevere. And so I had a Medicare card saying Guinevere Violet Triggs, and then it didn't stick. So they eventually, after a couple weeks, or maybe 4 weeks or so, changed my name to Emily. So the album is When Guinevere Went Under, means it's a self-titled album.
Yeah, that makes sense to me now.
It also makes a lot of sense when you meet my parents and see how much of a hippie-type lifestyle we lived.
So it's, I can relate to the hippie lifestyle.
Yeah, that's good.
When you met Laurie Matheson, what happened there insofar as the two of you clicking and it making sense for you to go into the studio together?
We were recording a Magnolia Buckskin album with Laurie, and it just clicked. You know, I just felt like, I think this might be a good person to work with on the album.
Good fit.
A good fit. I think he understands where I come from. I think he'll be able to push my songs in an area that most people didn't talk about. So when people would hear my voice, they'd say, oh, we know exactly what we'd like to do. It'll be a stand-up bass, really bare bones, and just a guitar and really simple. And that's not what I wanted to do at all. I wanted to push and try new things and try to create new sounds with this, what I know is a folk style type writing. Right. And so, I just spoke with him about it, and it was a good fit. Yeah. And then we did the second album together, Middletown, as well.
You know, the one thing, I mean, I'm familiar with his production, and I'm familiar with his technique. And that technique, I think, is to not overproduce.
Also, he's able to pick out the quality writing. And, you know, sometimes I get a little bit buried in my own writing, and it's hard to decide which songs we should record, so he's really good at that. And then he's also a little, he's definitely more rocky than I am, and I'm, you know, I'm the folk side of it. So in the studio, there is a push and pull that does happen, where, because he doesn't make every single decision on his own, that's why I like working with him. We decide what we want to do, and we try to accomplish that. And so it's a
team effort.
It is a team effort. But, I mean, he's the producer. He's making a lot of decisions, but I do have a voice in there. And also, I like that it's a push-pull, because then it means that we're doing something that is different. If it was easy, then what fun would that be?
Then it might not be right.
Yeah, it might not be right, yeah.
Now, there was a 2014, the first album came out, and then the second album was 5 years later.
I was writing a lot. I was traveling to different conferences. I was playing with different bands, singing on other people's albums, trying to make, your bills paid, get your bills paid, all of those things. And then also getting into the studio, getting it done. I don't feel uncomfortable about that gap in time. You know, and it's done when it's done, and then I get to put it out. And I was more deliberate in putting this album out as well, and we did a couple videos and stuff like that.
So the video for Our Love, it's like one complete shot. It's just, I mean, you in the other room, then you come here, then you sit down, and you just play. A really, really brilliant and yet still simplistic and very effective video.
Yeah, it's, you know, when we're doing these videos, it's great to have a video that matches who I am as a person and my writing style, and so that's a great little video. Just basically singing the song and presenting the song. So simple videos are
the best.
Yeah, I like them.
I can recall an interview with Leonard Cohen where the interviewer said to him, "Why are all your songs about love?" And his response was, "It's the only game in town." All of your songs are about love, right?
I think a lot of the songs are about love. I think, you know, some of them might appear that they're about love, but they're about hope, or they're about wanting to communicate more, or they're about, you know, wanting to get along. So
basically relationships.
Relationships.
Human relationships.
Yeah, the first album definitely had more story songs about situations or about people, and this album was more intimate. It was a more honest album, less storytelling about other people. But there's a couple songs in there where I am writing as if it's me and it's about somebody else. Like I'm putting myself in their shoes.
Yeah, it's funny because what is it? Run From Me is kind of like this woman scorned who is just like, hey, I'm going to take all your money, I'm going to do all this.
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of appears, or that's how it kind of comes off. Is there an underlying story on that?
Yeah, so when I'm writing, I love that when I can write and there's a layer to it. You know, so the song Home on the first album, it seems like it's about going home, but it's about a lot of different things. It's about finding solace wherever that is. It's about growing old. And so it's a layered song. And the song Run From Me is the same idea. It seems like it's the girl writing this song, but really the song is written from the perspective of abuse or the perspective of poverty. And so if you listen to it and think of the main character as being the idea of abuse or poverty sneaking into somebody's house, then it creates a different kind of visual.
Are you a fatalist, or do you just believe that every individual has the ability to steer their own destiny?
I believe that it's a little of both. I believe that some things are, you know, you have no control of, and other things you have all the control over. So, and you know, sometimes you're dealt a certain lot in life or a certain hand in life that you would need to be a superhero to get out of. And then you're not given any tools to be able to get out of it. Well, I'm doing some co-writing coming up in the next couple months. I'm finishing some songs for the next album. I've got 2 singles that we can release next year that we didn't put on the album, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with people. So lots going on, but mostly promoting this album and getting it to the listeners as much as possible.
Yeah, because it hasn't been out very long.
No, we released it at the end of November. You know, we're really happy people liked it. We worked really hard on it. The musicians on it are amazing. Chris Dadge, Paul Rigby, Chris Byrne, and Lori. And it's just, you know, great that people are hearing it because these guys are amazing musicians. And it's not just me putting this album together. So
what's happening outside of the circle of Calgary?
Well, I'm getting really connected to the Montreal scene again.
Okay,
And
good,
I'm
good.
going home often. And with that last tour we did in November, we were able to go play Wakefield and go into Ottawa and play the radio
So
station
you
there.
played your hometown?
Yeah, yeah. So
How was that? How was it playing your hometown?
it was fun. I mean, we did Montreal direct, and it was a smaller show, and then we played in the area I grew up in, and those were two, larger shows. I mean, they're small venues, so it's a great time. I get to see people that I haven't seen in years, and it's a lot of fun.
I think the idea is for it to kind of snowball, right?
Yeah, and also just to be a genuine person throughout this whole thing. I mean, if I have to do things that aren't me in order to make people care, then I've got to think about that.
Yeah.
And so, we're just continuing to talk to people about it, continuing to send the album out. I mean, I feel I'm behind on every task there is to do. And I'm also learning that my people that I admire, my mentors and heroes in the music industry, feel the same way. You're almost running your own little business and feeling a little bit behind on everything.
It's difficult.
So, yeah, and
It's difficult.
it's okay as long as you're happy and you're having a good time and you just keep going. And that's my goal, is to just keep going and keep writing. I already have some songs started for the next album, and I have an idea of what I want to do, and just looking forward, and it feels great. That's what feels great. Because there's no point in doing this if you're not having a good time. My favorite albums, or the albums that have influenced me the most in life, are, I would say, Pieces of the Sky by Emmylou Harris, because Emmylou Harris is awesome, and that album just encompasses something that's really earthy that I love. Michelle Shocked, Short, Sharp, Shocked, because she is political in her own way, and I loved listening to her as a teenager. She's really awesome when nobody else knew who she was. The Rolling Stones, Hot Rocks, that double album was one of my favorite albums of all time as a kid. I used to sing those songs when I was young on my guitar. Bob Dylan's "The Times They Are Changing." I know everybody likes that album, but I mean, there's a reason why, and I used to listen to that when I was younger, and it definitely influenced me as a kid. I used to stay up really late listening to that when I wasn't supposed to be listening to it on my little tape player in my bedroom. London Calling is one of the best albums of all time, I would say, and anything by Dire Straits. I'm a huge Dire Straits fan, and I have almost all of their records in vinyl, and I just love that band because they're diverse. And also Mark Knopfler's writing I just really like as well. And that's it. I mean, there's 1,000 albums I could list right now, but those are my top 5. I think that's 5.